Hey guys, welcome back to Mini Dioramas. In the last episode, I built a casino that is basically copied after the one from SimCity 4. So, I liked it, it was a good one, but since it's spooky month, the next one's going to be a haunted mansion, or a haunted house of some sorts. So that is the objective for this video, so I still am given 2 hours to build, and it's only vanilla, so no mods, no construction anarchy, no Freedom 2000, and no asset mods. So let's get on to the spookiness. Okay, here we go on the spooky month with the haunted house. So first things first, I lowered the terrain of the map so that it could be a little bit closer to the bottom. I didn't want to make this feel like this is on top of the mountain, so that's the change that happened. And then I made a little plateau where the haunted house will sit. And so this house is going to be designed merely after the one that's in game, mostly just kind of copying that style of a Victorian house, not necessarily going with that plantation house that Haunted Mansion at Disneyland has, which is still, I think that Haunted Mansion looks quite iconic. It's one of the most iconic Haunted Mansions, I think, in the collection of Haunted Mansions. I know that Walt Disney World is like a very interesting mix between the three or something of that nature. And then, well, actually no, I'm going to say that this is modeled after Phantom Manor, because that's a very western looking haunted house. So I'm kind of doing that here with this build. So it's going to be significantly big. There's going to be a lot of floors. It's going to be like a very tall haunted house. You wouldn't necessarily see that. Maybe you would see this in real life for a manor this big. Maybe. But this is kind of an idea, like you can probably, if you really wanted to, stick in the haunted house ride and kind of like layer it. Oh, but the ride really doesn't elevate quickly enough, so maybe not. It's a little too small. You would have to add a show building in the back. It still would be cool though, you add a show building and everything, that'd be neat. So right now I did some custom fences out of shapes and borders, and then some upside down pyramids to give that gingerbreading on the edge of the roof. And I wanted to make sure that this balcony is pretty iconic and out there in a way, just all browns. The house is going to be like that dark olive green color. And the first couple shapes I put down in the front is suggesting where a tower or a spire will go. So that's the idea of putting those there. And I always get this question about making giant buildings. And so in the case of this is a quite large building. And I'm trying to make sure that it's not all rectangles or just one giant rectangle is the problem I think most players have. So I'm trying to cut it up by doing some concave sections with the walls, making some balconies kind of pop out, and it kind of makes it drags away from just being a rectangle. It becomes more of a rectangle square type of shape, or an L shape. L shape usually helps in a lot of making giant buildings. So I'm kind of doing the same thing here. Like this building is not symmetrical at all. But that's kind of the point for like a haunted house. It's kind of going to be rickety, not balanced in itself, and just kind of just spooky. So that's the focus here, was just to make it very not unnerving, it's more like uneven and unsettling. And that's the word I'm looking for, unsettling, because it's a haunted house. It's supposed to give you that creepy feeling when you walk up to it. So you're like coming off the main road and you're like walking up to this house, and the trees are separating, and then there it is, the haunted house, spooky and not inviting. It's more like scary, so you don't want to go in. But maybe that's kind of the point. It's like go in, get scared, go out, hopefully you don't die, all that good stuff. This will be a cool house to actually walk up during trick-or-treating. That would be some house. So right now I'm testing out some different shaped ideas and roof things, trying to do different pieces here and there. Just testing out the waters. I had one concept art up for this, and I kind of copied that art. I might show it up on here if I figure that out. Yeah, there's a picture. I might even throw it up on Twitter just to share with you all later. But yeah, just making a outcrop, which is actually this section right here that you see. I'm just placing down some lines of wood out of shape. So that's the half grid. It's basically off grid right there. I wanted it to be a little bit protruding out, so that was kind of the objective here. And then I did some pyramid pieces all together to make some high-pitched roofing offset, because I can't use the roofs originally because they're on grid. So shapes are always the best way to get around the restrictedness of the grid, which is kind of the cool thing about it. I mean, I talked about all of it in my Bendyland map, so it's a very good technique to kind of learn. Then once you get comfortable with vanilla and making cool stuff, you venture into doing Construction Anarchy and Freedom 2000, and you go from there. So at the end of the day, I think you all will get better and better and better at building, especially with this little series that I'm doing. I feel like I get better and a little bit faster in my builds when I know what I'm doing ahead of time. So I did some pre-planning visually in my head. I was like thinking what I wanted to shape the building, my colors I picked, where it's going to sit on the map. I kind of did that precursor before I started the timer, and then went from there. So it's always a good thing to kind of maybe do a rough planning of where your restroom is going to go, where your rides are going to go. So this kind of applies to a lot of theme park type of things. Even though this series is not going to really be about theme parks, it's more about doing little dioramas in Parkitect, but still it kind of works the same. Pre-planning is always a good way to kind of practice. So I would suggest you try it out on a campaign map or maybe on a sandbox map, just to try out planning. It's pretty nice. So I added a balcony here underneath the tower. I felt like another balcony was appropriate, especially that this building's like maybe what 4 to 5 stories tall. It's really tall. I had a skeleton on here. I think I've deleted it, but I used the skeleton as my scale because that guy is perfectly as tall as the guests in the game. Maybe it's a little shorter. I think it's a little shorter. I'm not sure, but it's pretty close to scale of the walking guests, so that was pretty nice. And so right now I'm just figuring out windows next. So I wanted to do some fancy windows with the shapes, but I felt like the shapes were kind of too much, so I just went for very generic windows. And I think I added a little bit of like a wooden, what do you want to call it, a ledge on the windows, like a window ledge. And then I painted some of the windows a bright yellow, like the lights are on. So kind of give it that, oh, there's someone living in the house, even though it's abandoned. Now I wish I had more time in my build to kind of make it a little bit more disdained. I should have maybe quickly went in there and colored all the walls a little bit different colors here and there. But I kind of ran out of time to kind of just focus on building the forest after this, because the forest has to be built nearby. There's a river that needs to be decorated. So at this point I'm still chugging along on time here. But I like the time limit. I think it forces you to think what's the most important thing out of your build or in a design philosophy, because I knew that I couldn't skip anything on the building. I had to do most of it before I got really close to my end time, and everything else was kind of second to that. So the forest was going to be the last to do, the river was going to be the last to do, so that's kind of forces you to kind of think a little bit more quicker, and I think the practice of this helps in a lot of ways. So hope you guys are trying out doing your own dioramas, hopefully, because I think it's a really good way to practice picking up your building speed. I know that building speed is not necessarily important when you're making creation stuff, but sometimes it is, because sometimes you get in that rut of like, okay, I build too slow, I can't do this, and then I can't finish my project, and then the project disappears into the abyss and it will never be finished again. And I think that's sad when projects like that happen. I've done that too. I've done so many projects where they just disappear into the abyss, and I'm like, okay, well, I should have focused better on it. So this kind of forces you to focus. So as you can see, the house is pretty done at this point. Now I have to do some landscaping and some environment building to kind of suggest this house is in the middle of a dark forest somewhere, up in maybe, let's say, I don't know, where could this be? Oregon? No, this is like, I don't know what environment this is. Jeez, it's like just forest. I don't know. It's just kind of just making it up as I go. Made a graveyard on the side. Did some skeleton body. Yeah, skeletons. Skull, and then a coffin. And then some dead plants in the area. Bushes. A mausoleum, which is appropriate. I think that piece is gigantic. And unfortunately that piece is like useless. It's only useful for making graveyards. I have not found a way to use it to make something else, and there's like no way I can use it. It's really, really strange. Like there's nothing you can do with it, honestly. Maybe a decoration on the wall. I don't know. I have to experiment with it. Again, it's, in my opinion, a useless piece. It's only good for making graveyards. The tombstones are really nice to use for like making broken walls or adding detailing to a brick wall or something, or a stone wall or of that nature. So those are nice to use. The trees here, I used the willow, the spooky tree, some of the other Halloween trees, or the spooky theme. So the twisty trees and the twisty bush. On top of the house, I hid Mr. Bones from Roller Striker 2, so that was fun to do, just to throw in an Easter egg. Because he's just hidden up on top of the building, just kind of hiding. And then I wanted to do some lighting to make this a little bit more daunting at night. And then burial grounds for dirt covers. That's always fun to do. That burial ground I use so much. I mean, if you want to count all the pieces that I use the most, it's probably burial ground. It's a lot. So good stuff there. Oh, I put on a yeah, that's an antenna. That's not necessarily an antenna. It's like more like a flagpole, or it could be a lightning rod. Maybe it's a lightning rod. Who knows? And then I do some patchwork on the roofs to kind of give them a little bit more texture, because the in-game roofs are kind of blah. They don't do much. So I like adding some texture just to kind of give them a little bit more life to them. So that's always helps, and that was fun. I even added some patchwork on the walls for the first time. I never thought to do that with cubes, and so I was like, okay, let me just try to put some patchwork, or maybe some of the wood is just coming out or something. So I was kind of just messing around with that idea. And then some, oh yeah, purple dark roses, kind of just make them creepy. And then what else happened after this? Oh, some vines. Okay, so yeah, some vines were kind of ruining a little bit, just to make it a little bit more overgrown, kind of make it spooky. And it works out a little bit. Making anything that's like destructive or abandoned or old in Parkitect is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. It's easier with like Freedom 2000 and Construction Anarchy, because you can rotate pieces, make them at angles, you can make things look like they're breaking apart. It's a little bit easier, but it's still hard to make things look old because how vibrant the game's colors are and how simple there's no textures. So some of a difficult thing to try to figure out, but it's a challenge that I like doing it, so it's a good little challenge. So we're wrapping up here, and it's just doing some lighting stuff, and we're gonna venture over there and just see the spookiness of the haunted house up close. I might even play it at night just to see what it looks like. Hopefully it rains, but let's see what that looks like. Some thunder and lightning. So yeah, I'll just leave you guys here, and I'll see you guys in the tour, and then we'll just look at some close-ups and stuff like that. So I'll see you there. Oh, here we are in the haunted house. So I'm just gonna show you some of the close-ups of some details, just to kind of give you an idea of what I used in pieces of that nature. So let's just start with the balcony. So stone pathway, and then I just realized the owl's eyes blink. Oh, that's cool. Okay, sidetrack. So these are just borders. These are pillars, the smallest ones, and I just made some gaps here and there, just kind of just make them rotted and old. I did the same thing on most of the balconies here, and then these are the spooky fences. I barely use these, but it works in this case because this is a spooky diorama. So then here's the patchwork all over the walls here. I wish I found a way to kind of cover up the Z fighting, but what are you gonna do? You really can't. I mean, I can put something on top of that and put something there too. Actually, can I do this like this though? If I stuck this here, made it smaller, made it 10. I mean, I can hide it kinda, but now there's like this outshoot like wall piece, so I don't know if I'm gonna keep that. That one I can keep, this one, because it's hidden behind the chimneys. But this one I'm going to get rid of. But that's kind of the idea, right? Like, you can technically speaking do that. Oh well. So on the back side of the house is the back door from the kitchen, probably to the water that they use for the well, and then here's a water tower. And then what else is here? Okay, cauldron. I should have done more stuff with the cauldron, but hey, it is a done map. I don't necessarily need to work on some stuff because it is done. So I don't want to cheat. I mean, I a little bit did with that. Oops, but it's fine. And here's our lovely little graveyard with some skeletons coming out, dead ones, some live ones, and then the mausoleum in the back in the forest, and then our lovely little mud lake. Oh my gosh, no, it's river. It's a river. So it just looks good. And then it looks like this at night with some purple lighting tricks that I did. I got this from Robo, so this is the purple lighting trick, and I kind of like that all the trees are kind of just glowing in the night and kind of just being creepy and spooky. I can't believe this glows at night, but this is the new coolest piece. It just glows. You can make that just do some crazy stuff. I stuck some lights underneath the ground here to kind of make the house a little bit light up a little bit better at night. But I think it looks pretty spooky and ominous. But yeah, here is the haunted house. It'll be on the workshop for you guys to explore. If you want to take this and make it into a ride, I totally encourage you guys to do so. Thank you for my patrons for the continuing support. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can. I usually post some behind the scenes stuff and some early access to some videos. And then maybe if I get enough patrons, I might do that Parkitect University live type of thing I still want to do. I still have that in the back of my head, like that should be a thing. Maybe for a reward for patrons. So I'm going to do that. But I don't know what I'm going to do for the next diorama, because next diorama could be in November. So November could be, I don't know, Thanksgiving themed maybe? I don't know. It could be anything at this point. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.